Hi everyone. It's me. I am Pochito Alagba, which means Queen Mother, Ama Anane Yeboah Botre, also known as Queen Mother Francesca Abbey. I'm doing this video in light of all that we're going through right now with this coronavirus, losing elders every day. And as an elder myself, these may very well be my final words as a living being. This is my upgrade, my living obituary, because nobody else can write my story better than me. This is my rite of passage from eldership to ancestorship, and a resurrection of the ancient ones within me. This is my rite of passage document for my transition, graduation from elder to ancestor. And I've recently realized that I had not adequately achieved the level of African consciousness that qualifies me for my life, my rites of passage through my transition graduation preparation for elder, from elder to ancestor. And I need to do so. At the current age of 65, as I'm writing this document today, I feel as though I've been left back, stunted, delayed in my growth of intellectual enlightenment of knowledge of self, my ancestors, knowledge of my people, and the dimension in which I live. But it's never too late to resurrect the collective spirit of the ancient ones that dwell within me, who contain all the esoteric knowledge of this dimension and the universe, even the omniverse from its beginning. Little about my background. As a youth, early on, I was not exposed to anything African. So I went through my teenage years unprepared and unaware, not knowing who I was, why I was here, who my people were, or what they accomplished before I arrived in this dimension. Throughout my elementary school years, I was shunned and ridiculed for my heavily melanated skin color. Everywhere I went, even in my own household, I was the blackest of the blacks. I was blackety black, black, black. I cried every day because I felt there was something wrong with me being so black. I was taught by the media, my community, and even by certain relatives that being this black was equated to being dirty, evil, and not good enough. The only foothold I had in this dimension came from my first and very best friend, who was 83 years old when I was born. She was my mother's father's mother, my beloved great grandma Lila Mae. It was her love and nurturing that tied me to the earth as a baby. From my earliest recollection of being alive, she held me in her arms, dried my tears, and said these words to me: Child, you hold on. You hold up your head high and walk proudly. Don't worry about the mean things that people are going to say about you. Yes, you're black and you're beautiful. You're a beautiful black child. You're a princess because I'm a princess, because my mother was a princess from Dahomey, West Africa. So you walk with your head held high and be proud of who you are. I never forgot her words to this day because she said those words to me almost every day for at least 10 years until she died. My very first encounter with Black consciousness was with James Brown's record. Say it loud. Dun, 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 dun. I'm black and I'm proud. Did it? Did it? Yes. That was released in August of 1968, I believe. You could say it was my second rite of passage from childhood into adulthood, around puberty. That was when everything changed for me. Everything just opened up. My mind, all three of my eyes, and a resurrection took place. A resurrection of the collective spirit of the ancient ones that dwell within me. I stopped pressing my hair, curling my hair, and I had a barber cut my hair into an afro. I began playing a conga drum I received from my brother, and I began reading books by Black authors that weren't even allowed in my household. It was in the mid 1980s that I had an epiphany, a sudden and striking realization of the manifestation of the divine being within me, and made a quantum leap into African consciousness through African theater, acting in plays such as Julius Caesar, set in Africa by Rome Neal, performing with my African djembe drum with various African dance companies such as the Calabash Dance Theater in New York, going to lectures by great scholars and historians of African comedic Our Story at the Slave Theater in Brooklyn, and purchasing their books as well as books written by scholars that taught them. I leaped into an ocean of knowledge of African Our Story, self awareness, cultural pride, and dignity. I drummed my way into a deeper, I drummed my way into myself, a deeper self that I never knew existed. I read books with my two eyes until my third eye opened up. Then I began to write down the thoughts that came to me naturally from the encyclopedia within. Excuse me. It was in 1988. I was the first, and to this day, the only member of my immediate family to journey home to the motherland. I went with a group of African American people that were priests of the Akan of the Ashanti people of Ghana, West Africa. As an Akan priest in training, I was required to complete a portion of my training in Ghana. We traveled to Accra and lodged at the university at Legon. As soon as we arrived, as was stepping off the plane, I knew I had arrived home. I was virtually returned I had virtually returned through the door of no return. That's enough about my background. Getting back to the main topic of this document, my upgrade from elder to ancestor, I feel as though as long as my heart is still pumping and I'm still breathing on my own without the assistance of hospital machines, it's never too late to upgrade oneself. Just as I stated in my last video, the revolution will be fought and won on high. We upgrade our cars, we upgrade our cell phones and our TVs. It's time to upgrade ourselves. During the biological warfare lockdown we're experiencing now in 2020, due to the due to what the Mzungu or Funfun refer to as COVID-19 or coronavirus, as I'm writing this document, I just so happened to have stumbled across an abundance of precious jewels, the keys to the house of knowledge, through YouTube. Though this venue, through this venue, which surprisingly contains a vast amount of African conscious uploaded content, I discovered all of these old documentaries of lectures, interviews, and tours of Africa by Dr. Ben Yochanan, Dr. Joseph Ben Yochanan, Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, Professor Asa Grant Hilliard III, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Dr. Wade W. Nobles, Professor James Smalls, Anthony T. Browder, Professor Kaba Hiawatha Kameni, Dr. Laila Africa, and so many others, too many to name here. Most of their books I had owned and read in the past, but lost. I've been I've spent the past several months or so binge watching those videos, sometimes watching them over and over again for hours upon hours, drinking in all of that knowledge and wisdom and overstanding from my elders that I feel I should have had greater access to early on in my younger years. I feel as though I missed out on so much learning due to single parenting, working, striving, and surviving. There was little time left to read as many books and attend as many lectures as I would have liked to. But, oh well, I'm getting it in now. In the winter of my years, as I said before, it's never too late. Now that I have all the time and space, in addition to studying our story of Kemet, Nubia, and the Dogon people, I am also studying alchemy and quantum physics. I feel as though I just awakened from a coma. I understand that in the ceremony, right, preparing an elder to become an ancestor, information is whispered into the ears of that elder that she or he is to take with him or her back to the realm of the Iku, the dead. This information consists of the plight of our living and whom should be reborn, reincarnated, and sent back to this dimension to guide our youth properly into their elderhood, so that the cycle of our African people being born and transitioning, can produce a better version of us each time we come back. On Friday, March 31st, 2017, that was about 3 years ago, the National Black Council of Elders installed me as an elder. And then the following week, installed me on Friday, April 7th, 2017, installed me as a Queen Mother by Queen Mother Wakila Martinez of the Chartered Wichita, Kansas Council of Elders. A concise description of the rite of eldership and the rite of ancestorship, according to an Africana Studies piece written by Professor Manu Ampim in September of 2003, titled The Five Major African Initiation Rites. I've only listed two of his rites, initiation rites here, just, because we're short on time. So the first of the two that I've listed is the rite of eldership. The rite of eldership is an important stage of life, according to Professor Manu Ampim, because it is the elders who represent tradition and the wisdom of the past. In African culture, let's make this a little bigger so I can see what I'm reading here. Oops, too big. Okay, that's a little bit better. Now I lost my place. Okay. In African culture, there is a fundamental distinction that has to be made between an elder and an older person. An older person has simply lived a longer life than most people, but is not considered one who deserves high praise and respect. This is because the older person's life has not or may not have been a positive example for the community. An older person could be a thief or a drunkard or an evil person, or could be someone who never married or never had children. And thus, these examples would certainly prevent a person from being considered a respected elder. An elder, on the other hand, is someone who is given the highest status in African culture because she or he has lived a life of purpose. And there is nothing more respected than living a life of purpose. The life of an elder is centered in the best tradition of the community and is someone who has gone through all of the previous three rites and is living a model and is a living model for the other groups in the society to emulate. An elder is given the highest status along with newborn infants because these two groups represent the closest links to the wisdom of the spirit world, the realm of the ancestors. Again, according to Professor Manu Ampim in his writing, he goes on to say the rites of ancestorship involves preparation for transitioning into the spirit world, the realm of the ancestors. This final stage of preparation is important because the status that a person has in life is the same status that they will bring with them when they transition into the ancestral realm. There is virtually no African society that believes that when a person dies, this ends all ties and communication with the living. Nobody believes that. Rather, African philosophy from one culture to another agree that the spirit of the deceased is still with the living community and that a distinction must be made in the status of the various spirits as there are distinctions made in the status of the living. One of the most important, he goes on to say, one of the most important distinctions is the difference between an older person who dies and who is seen as nothing more than a dead relative and a respected elder who transitions and is revered as an honored ancestor. The dead relative dies without honor sometimes and is someone who is not remembered as a great person or someone who should be followed or emulated. On the other hand, a respected elder who passes on becomes a respected ancestor and is given the highest honor. This group of ancestors wield great power and are often called upon in matters of trouble or uncertainty to help influence a favorable outcome. Thus, ancestors are respected bloodline elders who have passed away and who continue to serve as an extension of the family and community. So that's Professor Manu Ampim's take on the rights of eldership and the rights of ancestorship. Now back to my story. So to chronologize, I never get that word, chronologize how I've undergone 4 of my 5 major African initiation rites of passage. One, my rite of birth took place in 1955, my first of the major African initiation rites, which involved me being initiated from ancestor to embryo to fetus to infant and into this dimension where I've been experiencing life outside of the womb as a spirit inside of a body. Number 2, rite of adulthood. My rite of adulthood took place in 1968. My second major initiation, rite of passage from childhood into adulthood, which occurred around puberty, when everything changed for me and a resurrection took place, a resurrection of the collective spirit of the ancient ones that dwell within me. An awakening, you could say. Number 3, rite of my rite of passage of marriage took place in 1973. My rite of marriage represented the joining of our 2 families and the 2 missions of the 2 people, myself and my husband. A person is not generally completely considered an adult in some cultures until they have married and had children. Number 4, my rite of eldership, which I mentioned earlier, that took place in 2017. Since I have completed my rite of eldership and now it's time for me to embark upon my journey through my preparation for my rite of ancestorship. And I'm wisely utilizing this time alone, shut in my abode to do so. I am gaining knowledge and wisdom exponentially each day, and I'm sharing it with others. Number 5, my rite of ancestorship taking place in 2020. Well, what I mentioned in number 4 is pretty much what's still going on. Presumably the last of my 5 major rites of passage, preparing me to become an ancestor who will be honored, respected, and remembered for many generations of descendants to come. Although I've struggled, although I've come, I don't know why I said struggle, although I've come a little ways in my consciousness, further than many, but not as far as most. Through the years, I've struggled to learn, evolve, and maintain my pride, my dignity in all facets of adversity. I have stood proud and walked with grace and decency. I am by no means considered a scholar or a historian, and I'm not perfect, but I have certainly done the very best I could with what I was given to work with in living as righteously as I could, raising my children the best way I could, and striving to practice the principles of Ma'at to the best of my ability, so that when I transition, I may pass through the trial by Asur, nature of the underworld, and just judge of the Iku in the hall of 2 truths. And may the weighing of my heart be in balance on the golden scale against the white feather of truth. May my soul be justified so I may pass on toward the bliss of the fields of reeds. Now, I have no idea as yet how the resurrection of the ancient ones within me coincide with my rite of ancestorship, but I'm quite certain it will be all revealed and become crystal clear to me in due time. Nevertheless, I am awakening the ancestors who dwell within me as I'm learning and evolving, expanding my mind, strengthening my spirit, and preparing myself emotionally for that final journey. Perhaps by awakening the ancient ones within me, I'm somehow giving them a heads up of my soon arrival to their realm. And perhaps by preparing myself, it's a way of packing a suitcase of awareness, knowledge, information, and wisdom whispered into my ears to carry with me and utilize as an ancestor in the afterlife. Well, that's enough on that note. I'm going to say good day to all of you, and I hope that each of you will follow suit and create a document similar to mine based on where you are in your life's journey and where you're heading, so that when it's your time to transition, someone else won't have to write your obituary or your story for you, not knowing who you are inside and how you lived your life for your entire life. If you write it yourself, they'll have a better roadmap to go by to describe your life in the best light possible. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.